My name is Henry, and this week I'm joined by Matt, Dario, and Kaz to talk all things mountain biking. Generally, just get through it. Hopefully, answer some of your questions, and we'll get some sense out of my colleagues. And starting off this week, Dario, Fox have released more stuff. They've had a busy couple of
This is
months.
like week 8 of the Fox launch cycle. Yeah, this is kind of the last big one for a while. I think I can say that. Yeah, the X2 and DHX2 have been released, fully redesigned. They're monotube now. Same adjustment externally as before, but significantly different internal architecture.
Could you just explain what you mean by monotube there?
Yeah, principally it's a simpler path for the oil to flow through. I think that's the elevator pitchiest way to say it. It's more of the damping is done by the main piston as opposed to secondary circuits, and as a result, there's less risk of cavitation and oil aeration, which were things that cropped up as issues on the previous X2. So hopefully a more durable shock.
Could that be described as the inverse of what they're doing with the X2? Because I know they've moved a lot of the damping away from the mid valve to try and get better pressure balancing.
In the shock or in the
in the damper, or maybe I'm misinterpreting that.
I have a hard time in my mind drawing comparisons between fork dampers and shocks, just because architecturally they're very different. But ultimately, like, they are aiming to achieve the same. They're trying to build damping the same way between the two.
It seems like there's a concerted effort to this focus on pressure balancing on reducing it. The X2 previously, especially the Air one, sometimes came in for a bit of flack in terms of reliability.
Yeah, I mean, people like the Pinkbike comments are uniquely hateful, I think, on that shock, but without a doubt, I think all of us have probably experienced some durability issues with that shock. Whether it's just like excess noise happening at some point or like a full, damper blow up, it had issues. They did kind of like maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, release like an updated version with better seals and like a slightly more durable package, but I don't think that was enough to assuage people's concerns. So full redesign makes more sense. Plus, like, beyond the monotube shift, they've done a lot internally to try to beef up the shock. Like the main shaft is beefier on both the coil and air shock, so it should be a bit more stable with side loading. And then because it's monotube, like, the seals get smaller, which helps with friction, but also with durability. So
how long you had on them?
Only a few weeks, so not a ton of time. And I've been playing with different tunes, so I'm not settled on anything that I'm like, this is the one yet. So, but I will say cool. What I did was with the air shock was pull the travel spacer out and try it on both a high tower and on my frameworks, just because they're same eye to eye, but very different stroke length. And I was able to get like a fairly happy point just using the external adjusters on the shock. So, the range of adjustment is pretty wide, but what's cool about the new family of shocks is the internal tunes are shared with the Float X and DHX, which are like the simpler counterparts, meaning you'll be able to get like a far wider range of internal tunes for them, which means
super cool.
More bikes and more riders will be catered to, I think.
And is there any real, how to put this? It looks like the piggyback's a lot bigger on this shock. Would that be right in saying? And they moved the rebound adjustment to the lower eyelet on both, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the piggyback is like no longer parallel with the shock. It's now like a perpendicular block. It looks kind of like the old DVO shocks. It is bigger, but I don't think there are any fitment issues. Like, Fox hasn't said like this won't work with XYZ. For the DHX2, there is a parallel piggyback version. The whatever shock tunnel on the V10 doesn't fit the perpendicular one, so they came out with like a special fitment for that downhill bike. But I think that parallel piggyback shock is only available in whatever shock size the V10 uses.
Kaz, we've seen lots and lots of brands experiment over the years. I mean, Cane Creek over 10 years ago moved to this twin tube setup, and then other brands have persisted with monotube. Do you think there's any particular trend that we're seeing across the industry? Because you had the 11.6, you had so I just got a call on Slack, which I'm absolutely ignoring and carrying bravely on. There's lots of different shocks out there, different coil shocks. Do you think there's a prevailing trend to go over to twin or monotube at the moment? Oh, you're muted. Professionalism knows no bounds. We're just going to carry bravely on.
Here we go. I don't know. My mute is stuck. Sticky mute button. Yeah, I think for a while it did seem like the twin tube was kind of the trendy thing, and then everyone kind of hopped on that. And then I think now we're just seeing a split, and I don't think one's necessarily better than the other. It's all just about how you execute it, basically. Like I know that Fox in particular was really happy with their Float X, and like that shock was worked well for them, and they weren't running into durability issues, and like the range of tuning that they could do made a lot of sense. So I think when you're a big company, you're trying to make a shock that works for lots of different bikes, or you want to be able to make it work for lots of different bikes. So I don't think there's one. I don't think you can concretely say like twin tube is the way or monotube is the way. I think you can get a good performing shock with either one. But this one does look nice and straightforward. So it'd be interesting to see. Hopefully they've solved durability issues and it works well for them.
Matt, being a racer 10 years ago, you must have had a Cane Creek double barrel. One of your bikes.
Did not. No, I had a friend who did. He had the same bike, so we ended up swapping bikes a couple times. I had a go on that. But it's funny you say, is there a reason that these shocks kind of trended in this direction? And it seemed like the first couple iterations from brands, or at least they went in that direction to get more adjustment, like high and low speed, rebound, high and low speed compression. And the Cane Creek was a 4-way. The DHX2 was a 4-way, and the Float X2, yada, yada. And now they're going back, but still offering some of those adjustments, at least in Fox's case. Was it maybe harder to package that
in
the monotube?
Yeah. Fox says they're the first company to do a monotube 4-way adjuster, and I couldn't find any others, so I think that might be true. It's really hard to package high and low speed rebound on a monotube shock. And the way they did it is really cool. In the lower eyelet, you have two external adjusters, both knobs, and there's a set of worm gears inside that eyelet that drive either the rod that closes the needle orifice for low speed or turns the VVC plate that changes like the cam for how the high speed rebound works. So it's a very complex little tiny watch part that changes it. But they've also made this was something I went up to the service center to ask the guys about this, because previously assembly on that VVC cam thing was quite complex and required this giant machined tool that you had to buy from Fox in order to set the tension on it correctly. And that is no longer the case, which is cool. So in addition to maintaining the VVC high-speed rebound, they've made it a bit simpler for people to work on, which is cool.
I think even just the external dials would be nice. Like the old dial was external, but the high-speed rebound, you just forgot that it even existed because it got just hidden behind the eyelet. So you'd have a bike, and most people, I feel like, never even touched it because it was just not even an accessible part.
Yeah, so. and both of those new adjustments on the rebound are, you don't need a key or an Allen key. You can just use your fingers. So that's cool.
And to me, I don't know, the high-speed rebound is the kind of the value add with the shocks. The damping you can create is quite nice, but being able to change that parameter, I think, is it's a differentiating factor for me.
There is a second way. You could just have your spring rate so low that you never get a high rebound event.
Just that's the other way that you could bottom third to travel forever.
Yeah, just float in that bottom up bumper. Do, you just ride on the elastomer.
50-pound spring. It's all you need.
Yeah, you add a second spring, it's bumper to your coil shock, and you're just riding that the whole time. Yeah.
You also have something from the Shocks of Rocks. Would that be right in saying?
Yes. Yeah, they have a new seat post, a new reverb,
e-reverb. A big boy?
Big dog, longest dropper post on the market.
Holy shit.
Yeah, they have it.
Is it 243? Because I think Bike Kicker got 242.
It's Wolf's Tooth has 242, and now RockShox has 250, which is pretty fucking long. I have one coming for my frameworks. I've been riding a 225 for a while, and that's also nice and long. But yeah, it's sweet. It works wirelessly. It's got a kind of weird battery protrusion at the collar, same as the Fox post, but it works well. It has a feature or a bug, depending on how you look at it, of mid travel it sags a ton. So like bottom and top are rigid, but then between those two it has, they're calling it like an active ride sensation.
Classic.
Yeah, it's active ride. It's a feature. They have it on their gravel post too, right? Yeah.
Which like I could see like on an e-bike, it's kind of a thing where you can like drop the post halfway and then just like, chill and let the motor do everything. But usually if I'm like half posting, I want a firmer position, right. But it's okay.
I just want to go on record here. I think SRAM makes some unbelievably good stuff across the board in all areas. I think they've got loads of innovation. They've got like a real clear brand identity in terms of like the way they focus stuff. I think it's so cool, but they are so easy to make fun of because of stuff like this.
Yeah.
It's just like, guys, oh no.
Yeah.
But hey.
It doesn't, I don't think it's a feature anyone was asking for is what it is. So that's what it really seems like they just couldn't figure out.
You think it is a feature?
No, that's what I mean. Like, I don't think it's a feature, but it feels more like something like, we don't know how to make this not do this, so let's call it active ride.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the name for the record. It's like...
No, I think that is. I think that it's something like that.
That's the case, why?
Like that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's... Functionally, it's a byproduct of the, like... It's an air-over-air spring, so it has... like an overcoming force at top out that makes it rigid, but then when you equalize those chambers a bit more, the positive can overcome the negative or vice versa, and as a result you get like a little bit of
yeah, I can read the ad copy for it now.
Oh, there we go.
With the touch of your Axis controller, you've got built-in compliance to ensure comfort and control over the roughest sections. Yeah,
okay.
That's off their gravel one, but that's the same as that's on this new one. So
I could see it on short travel bikes. Yeah,
I think so.
Be beneficial. They're definitely going after comfort with all their products.
But does that mean the further you are into the stroke, the more you get? Like, if it's a 80% stroke, the pressure.
I think so.
Like a 50% stroke, which kind of undermines it a bit. No.
Yeah, I've tried to find that like by ratcheting down, but it's not enough to be like super perceivable, at least like with an elbow's force. But yeah, I have that bike, what's the brand? Bunker.
Yeah, the turn on
Bunker, the Sex Dungeon post, and that has the same function where it's like it gets squishy in the middle, and that one isn't proportional. It's just like all the way through, but that's because his is like an oil column that it's squishing on. So I don't know, man. Yeah. It's a C post. Yeah. I don't really care. Like I'm up or down for the most part. And it does that well. I think the thing people are going to complain about really is the way it looks. Like same with the Neo. It's just kind of ugly.
A little tumor.
But at least this is long. Like it's long. It's cheaper than the last Axis post. So I think they're doing the right things in that sense. Like it's trending.
It's almost half the price, I think, of the last.
Yeah,
it's still really
significantly
expensive.
cheaper.
It's like $540 or something, which is still a lot, but it's.
When the last one was like $8 something when it came out, that's a good. That's a healthy difference. So, yeah, I'm still trying to find the name of the squish.
No, it is Active Ride. You're right.
It is. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And And is that just to go off on one last thing? How long have you had this Bose? And again, the reverb. I mean, I think it shared a similar sort of story to the X2 in that there was a lot of reverbs out there, a lot of X2s out there, and so it's really hard to parse out how reliable they are or not because they are so much more common in the
OE world.
That's another thing.
I think that the not cable actuated, but the hydraulic lever actuated reverb had reliability issues, but the E version wasn't quite as problematic. Like I don't know that to be a pain point for them. But yeah, I have a friend who has a bucket full of like, I think it's like 12 or 13 dead hydraulic reverbs that they just kept warrantying, and he just kept putting them into this bucket. Now there's like a bushel of them. But no, I never had issues with the electronic reverb from a reliability standpoint.
Yeah. Okay, well, hey, that's a lot to get through. Thank you very much, Dario. Matt, what's your show and tell this week?
I've been busy, but not quite as busy as Dario. I have the Polygon Colossus. We were riding the higher spec DHR model, which goes for $4,999 US, which is a hell of a deal, I think. Given the parts on there and the comfort and the geometry of that bike. It's a bike that you could take to any race and do quite well on. I think it's a good privateer bike. I think it'd also be fun, or it was fun in the bike park as well. You can make some changes to the geo. You can ride it as a full 29 or a mullet. So it's highly adaptable too.
And we saw their trail bike often coming in for some bit of flack in the last couple of years, being quite heavy.
Yeah.
Downhill bike looks like it's got a similar layout. Does it also have a similar heft? Although admittedly, it's not so perhaps.
On the scales, yeah, it's not particularly a light bike. It's just under 18 kilos or just under 40 pounds. And that was for a size medium, which is maybe a smidge smaller than some other brands, mediums.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, definitely those bearings and the links and the alloy frame, they all add up. Although it doesn't ride like a heavy bike. It's pretty snappy. Chainstays are on the shorter end of the spectrum for a downhill bike. It just has like a lot of life to it too. Just, comes off the ground when you want it to.
Downhill bike's lighter than the enduro bike. I'm looking at it right now.
I could see that, by the time you add in a dropper post and the bigger cassette and stuff. So, and maybe 29-inch wheels on the enduro. Yeah. So it depends how you build it up.
I like the comment that someone. Oh, sorry. I like the comment where someone said, "I bet it's a good turner," because people remember the Turner DHR.
How would you rank it against those downhill bikes we had last year, the V10 and the Supreme, sticking out to me most of all?
I would say it's definitely up there. It's not quite as magical as some of the high pivot bikes. Yeah, I think it's a great bike. I think it would hold its own for, all but the top racers amongst those bikes. The Supreme still kind of stands out. I think it was just that extra bit of travel and the longer chainstay and just how that bike really positioned you in between the axles. This one's the Polygon's a little less balanced. Chainstay definitely feels a bit shorter. So if you like that kind of ride, if you want a snappier, quicker downhill bike, this was along the same lines as the YT in that regard. Very similar balance, but a lot slacker as well. So,
and great value too. I mean, that YT was also really good value.
Definitely, and a fair bit lighter. I kind of made that comparison in the article with, how these bikes rode and their parts and the price. And basically, if you want to spend a whole lot less and get maybe a bit of a snappier ride. If you want to spend a little bit more and get a lighter frame with a snappier ride, then the YT is the way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Cool. And Kaz, what's your show and tell this week? What you got going on?
The only thing, a lot of the things I still have can't be talked about, but Yeti is coming out with a 40th anniversary of their ASR. And so it's their every 5 years, I think since their 25th anniversary, they come out with a really fancy, no holds barred, crazy blinged out build. And that's what this thing is. And I just really like how it looks. And it even though it's crazy expensive, and I'm sure people be make silly, I don't even know, comments about it.
How crazy is crazy?
$13,900 US. So there's no motor, and that's a regular bike, and there's a But it is
it's got like funny old school graphics. And stuff.
They even got the Yeti ODI grips. Like they got ODI to.
Is funny old school graphics? What do they cost? $5,000?
Yeah. No, they're very
graphics on there.
Yeah.
What do they call the retro builds in the car world?
Restomod?
Restomod. Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, Restomod Yeti.
This is a new frame, but it's kind of what it reminds me of.
They put a 130 mil fork on it, so it changed the geometry a little bit. So now it's 130 in the front, 115 in the back.
That's worth another $5,000.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's no big deal. So yeah, the price is outrageous, and
it's very nice looking. I mean,
but it looks cool, right? Like it's like but obviously,
how does it get the blue Maxxis tires?
Paid them money.
Wait, they're blue?
This is if you can make blue logos, surely there'd be lots of race teams in the pits hoping they made black logos and save them sharply.
They should come out with like the blacked out, just a pre-blacked out Maxxis. I'm sure they can. Yeah,
absolutely.
There's blue Forecaster hot patches on there and custom like DT. Like if you do look close, there is a lot of custom.
Okay,
stuff.
Yeah, this is actually.
I'm gonna hunt. I'm gonna hunt for the blue Forecasters. That's my golden goose right now.
Yeah, nice. Well, Seatric's coming out. We can do some scavenger hunting maybe and see what we can find.
Pull them off the show bike that Yeti surely has there.
The blue sky Forecaster.
Oh, nice. And they even did a little oven cleaner treatment on the Float SL. It looks like.
Yeah.
I imagine it's oven cleaner. Yeah,
probably.
Just like Dario said, this is what we should use. It's cool. Look, it's worth the bike. That's like worth drooling over a bit. But then again, it's crazy expensive. But that's not the point. I just like that they went all out. It's cool.
Yeah, honestly, this is like a real amount of work that they put into it.
Yeah. It's only 200. It's just a special edition thing.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my show and tell.
No, nice. Shall we get into some questions? I'm just going to hit. I'm pretty sure I did a good job of organizing them, but we're going to find out. I can't promise anything. Let's go.
Hi, Pinkbike. Nico here, the Taras guy. I've just been riding for a long time on many different bikes, and I've never heard or even seen so many bike crashes on mountain bike on international or even local events. And I'm now wondering if we reached a level of bike evolution where we should maybe restrict them, as in like maximum travel, controlled wheel size, and maybe like a wheelbase, maximum wheelbase or something for each type of racing, so that we could, that way we should sort of limit what the machines can do, and we could control the risks a bit better. It will also make the brands work on making what we have better instead of keep pushing what they can do to go fast.
Dario, the man with the 4-meter wheelbase is shaking his head.
Yeah, I don't like this.
I don't either. It's not the bike's fault people are crashing.
Let's just hear him out. Maybe he's going to bring it back.
Because
Dario, do you want to?
No. Yeah, play.
Okay, we'll go.
If you look at motocross or BMX, they haven't had many big changes, and that's because of the racing being restricted. And it's their way of keeping control on what is possible for the riders. I'm sure in Supercross, it's limited to 450 with all the rules. But if you put the riders on some unlimited bikes, I'm sure they could go a lot faster on the track. It doesn't mean they should.
That's fair.
I actually like this question. I mean, I don't know. Well, firstly, Matt, maybe starting with you, do you think there's a link between how capable bikes are and how much people crash? Like, do you think you end up going to because you should have a safer, but then maybe you go closer to the ragged edge?
Yeah, I could bite on this a bit. I think there is some element to the operating window for how fast people can ride, and that brings it closer to implementing like a bigger crash. So they can get up to those speeds faster, but when they do, when shit goes wrong, it's a bigger crash than it used to be, say, on like short 26-inch wheeled bikes. Definitely see that. But I think there's another element to it where you have a lot more people in the sport now, maybe more riders in the beginner intermediate zone through COVID and all that stuff. Bike parks are happening all over the world, more development in that area. So the access to the trails has grown as well. the wheels have gotten bigger. Like I said, I don't think we need to put a limit on it. I think riders can make those judgments for themselves. And maybe also social media pushing people. They see it more. They see what the bikes are capable of doing. They see what their friends are doing more frequently. So it's a sum of the parts, right? Like I don't, there's one thing that you can point towards the bikes being that influential on it. I don't think we need to restrict it.
Yeah.
We don't have a motor. Like, it's not like the hills are getting steeper. Yes.
Well, but I think tracks have changed more than bikes have.
Yeah, I think it could be more like if you wanted to chalk it up to something, it could almost be like a request that track design changes a bit, which I'd be fine with that. Like we were seeing the last couple of years, they just started putting like super high speed motorways, and that's where if you do crash there, like you're so hurt because you're going 60 miles an hour or whatever. So I could see like pull back a little bit and make a few less just full on flat out sections, or just make the average speed a little bit lower. And I think even some riders were requesting that because they were saying some of the courses were getting crazy because these guys and girls can all go so fast, but they don't necessarily want to have to like turn it to 11 all the time and roll the dice in a race run. So I could see like making more of a focus on the tracks, kind of like keeping the speeds manageable, but like it's a race. And yeah, I don't think the wheel size really, even if we said everyone has to go back to 26-inch wheels, I think the average speed would still be higher just because we know about geometry now. We've got better brakes, better suspension. So I don't know how you put the limit on that stuff, Do
you think the racing could be better though? Imagine if it was mandated, like every, the Pinkbike audience's dream. It was mandated 26-inch wheels and flat pedals.
God damn it, no.
Like I would watch a retro race, but yeah, I don't know if it's gonna like someone will still go wild. Like
but
the
like
faster the track, usually the less variation there is in line choice.
That's true.
I remember the 4 cross racers always talking about that. Like fast tracks were not that exciting to watch because the first person to the front would win and everybody just follow in a row. And I think you see a similar thing with downhill now. Like riders tend to figure out the tracks pretty quick, whereas before at slower speeds there were so many line choices. And even in enduro still a bit you see that variation more. So there could be some element to cutting that back and making things safer and more exciting.
I think
Dario, talk us through this 4-meter wheelbase.
I have my brain's split on this. Like I kind of agree with the guy that I think I'm going to speak to it more on a recreational side of things. That's not racing. Like I do think people crash worse now because you're carrying a higher average speed. Like, and there's some data to support this, that like we're seeing like an increase. Obviously mountain biking as a sport has grown. We've had a recent influx of new riders as well, but the speeds that you can sustainably carry on a bike are higher because they're more capable machines. And as a result, when you crash, you're often crashing at a higher speed. So maybe there is something to the fact that like, yes, with a capable bike, you can get more hurt, but I don't think that's an argument to restrict them. I think it's an argument to like ride more carefully or learn how to ride in a safe way. There's two sides to that coin. My other thing is I think like as bikes have gotten to be so good that you can kind of let them handle a lot of things on trail, like the way that people ride is different. Like people are more willing to drop in on a trail that maybe they shouldn't, because they're like, well, my bike's got like a 62.5 degree head angle. Like I probably won't go over the bars on this super steep thing, but I can just
here, Dario.
drag brake the whole way down.
Yeah, but I think that's always been the thing. Like I remember my first downhill bike being like, I can do anything. And I'm sure that downhill bike had a 68 degree head angle and shitty days brakes back then. And like, there's a confidence that comes with like new bike and lots of travel, but I don't think that was definitely more likely to get me hurt, but that was my own fault. That's not like,
well, let me put it this way then. So Matt, in Squamish, I feel there are now more trails that you can go absolutely fully tapped than even 2 years ago. I think that trail building is sort of not changed, but there's more prevalence on like, because I would say I always liked riding like quite high speed tracks. Yeah. But there are trails now that, up on Diamond Head that are.
Dude, the sustained speed is crazy on some of those. Yeah.
Flat out.
Like the one of the pads is like it needs pads.
Yeah. Which which I feel is a departure from even a couple of years ago. Is there a similar thing happening in Bellingham?
No, we always
are there any like flat out trails coming?
There are some.
But it's kind of a mix. It's always been. It just really depends on like your terrain and kind of topography. Like if you go down to Ashland, Oregon, that place has had the fastest trails ever for such a long time. Like the way those trails are built and just the way that hillside goes. So you go there and you're like, even coming from Bellingham and going there, like, I don't feel comfortable going this fast. I'm not used to it. And then the locals there are like, what do you mean? Like, this is just how it is. Because you're on a trail. It just doesn't turn. It's not that steep really, but you're going
you're just
as
carrying
fast
a
as you
straight line
possibly
speed.
can in the trees. So I think it just kind of depends. And things come and go. You know, I know a lot of people from, you know, the North Shore, like Vancouver or Squamish, come to Bellingham. Like, you guys have all these jumps and it's so flowy. And then we go up there and we're like, oh, you guys have all these cool rock moves. It's kind of like really region specific. At least, you know, this little, our part of the world is different here. But I do think there's more flow trails in the world, and those tend to have a higher speed than your old typical like hand dug, you know, an old repurposed hiking trail or something. Probably didn't have the speeds that you get on like a machine made groomed thing. So I bet higher, overall across the world, I bet average speeds are higher in general.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, you know, I often wonder how you really review road bikes because they're mandated by the UCI what angles they are.
Yeah, like you get the occasional one that pops outside of that standard, but not many.
But large, and I know. I think that's the cool thing about mountain bikes is even though it is feeling more homogenous than ever, it's still got more variety than most other disciplines. But no, super cool question actually, worth thinking about. So we'll go on to the next one.
Hey, Pinkbike, this is John from New York City. I feel like for a podcast, your ratio about talking about tires is quite low compared to some others. So I got a question for you.
I find quite shocking.
I feel like everyone kind of knows the general rules of thumb with like the tire to pick like loose over hard or hard, assegai, like loose, loamy, shorty or something like that. But I feel like here's one that people don't talk about is roots. What do you like riding on the East Coast? Half the time you're hitting roots, diagonal roots, shiny roots. I was curious what you guys think is the best tire for that. Is it like a compound, casing, tread, or you just die? Just curious what your take is on tires for roots.
Kaz,
that's a good
you're
question.
The East Coast boy, I believe.
Yeah.
Straight from similar part of the world, I guess.
It kind of depends on what type of bike you're on, but if it really depends on like how tall the knobs are and how likely they are to get hung up. Like say you're on an XC bike, like the Recon, the Maxxis Recon, I love for roots because it doesn't have a lot of like hanging off knobs, but it still finds traction. But then for like bigger, meatier tires, the old Magic Mary, I never liked Schwalbe Magic Mary. I never liked on roots because it has these little side knobs that I feel like they would slip. They would kind of catch, and the angle would make them slide. So I think you're just looking for predictability. That's where, like he mentioned, the assegai. That's a great tire on roots because it's like a little bit rounder profile, and the knobs don't tend to fold as much. So for me, that's what I find. Like even if you go, like you mentioned, a shorty, that's not the best root tire. They improved it recently, but again, it's got those squarer blocks that can kind of like tip. You're looking for something that kind of like conform to the roots and keep you in a straight line and not just deflect. So
Magic Mary be a bit of a case study though, and how much difference a sidewall makes.
Yeah, well, I think that radial casing, like now the new Magic Mary, it's a lot better because the center of the tire is able to conform. So you're not putting as much force like on the side. So it is kind of like mushing over the roots, and it's still the same tread pattern, but it's the way the casing can deform. So really what you're looking for is a tire that can kind of mush its way over the roots. And tire pressures are going to be super important too. If you're riding really wet roots, you're definitely going to want to drop some pressure and not just get like pinballed off.
Yeah, totally. Go ahead, Dario.
I was just gonna say, I like the new Conti DH tires are like my most confident feeling. Like once they're broken in, like those feel really nice on slippery wet routes. Like something about rubber compound there, something about casing feel. They have a nice balance for here at least. Like I haven't ridden East Coast route, so I don't know how the
roots are the same as here.
differs.
There's a big thing. Yeah, it's really similar. It gets pretty maybe a little slimier in some spots there, but like we have roots and they got roots. They're different.
I'm going to New York next month, so maybe I'll rent a city bike and go ride some rooty trails.
Central Park. Sit up to Central Park.
Just a tip. There are two New Yorks. Not a lot of people know this. There's the city and there's the state.
I'm
just
going
make
to
sure
city,
you don't go to the
not
wrong
state.
One. Okay, cool. Because I can imagine you getting on a bus for 2 days and get to the wrong one. I shouldn't say the same.
I'm taking a Greyhound to New York City. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I just want everyone to have a nice time. Matt, I actually saw in your Polygon review, you mentioned swapping out the stock tires, and you talked a lot about the glancing effect. What do you think that's down to? You know, I saw you change the compound of the tires, but to go for a similar tread pattern.
So it came with Taki Chan super gravity casing, soft compound tires, front and rear. And so that's the Schwalbe tire with the orange hot patch on the side. The purple one's the ultra soft. And the Taki-chan has a bit of a crown in the center. So the side knobs are lower. And I find that on hard pack or even on rooty sections of the trail, until you really tip the tire over, the wheel over, like lean the bike, they tend to not get traction right away. So it requires a special learning of the tire to really trust it. And so that can also mean that the tire shoots in one direction or the other very quickly when you're trying to go in a straight line. It will ping you left and right because there isn't a lot of surface area, or so it feels like, even if you drop the pressure quite low. Yeah. And so going to a different tread pattern in the front just kind of takes away that, like the Magic Mary, moving to that, it's a little bit broader, a little bit flatter, although still not quite as flat as, say, a DHR2 from Maxxis or something like that. So going back to this guy's question, it's tricky to put it down to one thing, but I maybe looking for a tire that has that uniform tread pattern that's more consistent, and definitely going for the softest compound you can get, and possibly running at a lower pressure, kind of finding that balance between where you might risk flatting and bouncing off of objects.
Well, I think that lower pressure is also a really good point, because if you think about, if you have a light tire at high pressure, it can rebound very quickly. And the second, if it's rebounding back, and twisting up, can be quite disconcerting. For me, I don't know, we were actually talking about this before filming. I think sidewall plays such a huge, having like the right relationship between air pressure and sidewall, but you're not getting something that just is so firm that it does glance, because it's almost like there's so much preload that can actually kind of take into the tire stroke. For me, it's really big. I've been running a lot of different tire brands recently, and that's the biggest difference I've noticed in the Slam. Okay, cool. Well, on to our next question.
I have a quick question.
You got more
for Matt. Do you run the Taki-chan as a front tire ever? Like, is there a situation where it works as a front tire?
I think it would have to be on a particularly soft track or trail. Okay. Very few roots, mostly grass, soft mud.
Okay.
No rocks.
I briefly tried it and it was so scary for me, but I'm not as good of a rider as you are. So I thought like maybe there's a use case, but it didn't. I like it as a rear tire, but up front,
it's probably kind of more edgy. Right? Yeah, just a little more edgy. It's a little narrower too. I think the overall profile is like.
I've seen some riders, and like going back to another comparison, it's very similar to the Maxxis High Roller 2. And some people really love that tire. They swear by it. Some riders really like the Taki-chan, but I'd like to hear more about when and where they run that tire. And also maybe look at their skill level. I think it's not as easy to learn. Definitely not something for beginners, especially on flat hard pack trail. Like we had that Taki-chan as a test or a control tire in our Whistler field test last year for the downhill bikes, both front and rear. And Henry and I didn't really get along with it, but I think in the right trail conditions, it could work for some people.
I think on a chain, you said there, but on a deteriorating or changing track, especially when it's dry, having something that's like kind of like blown out, like on the Canadian Open track in Whistler, like that dust section. And I thought it kind of got into its play to its strengths there, or when it was soft enough that you were just like basically just like on like soft grassy trails, and you could just dig in. I thought it was pretty good. But I know what you mean. It was on rocks and wet routes and stuff. It could be quite exciting sometimes. Okay, on to the next one.
Guys, Andrew here from Southern Vermont. Really enjoying the podcast. Thanks for doing it. Love all the knowledge and geeking happening. I worked at a bike park last season and noticed that as a mechanic, always changing flat tires, tubeless tape is just god awful. I mean, besides the yellow Cavalli stuff, or however you say it, everything else is garbage. And 9 times out of 10, I would turn to using Gorilla Tape because it just works better, sticks on any surface, and I'd have to spend an hour trying to get all the gunk off a rim. What's your thoughts on Gorilla Tape, and why are more brands not making a product like Gorilla Tape? Or like, why are more bike brands not making a product like Gorilla Tape? Is it because it's too heavy? Or, yeah, that's the only reason I could think of, is it's too heavy, but we'll love to hear
Who
your
wants
thoughts.
it?
Thanks.
I Gorilla taped a rim last night. So
we should.
I feel you, dog.
There's a strong contingent of people out there that right now are saying never use Gorilla Tape. It's the worst ever. Yeah. People hate it. Like a certain amount of people hate it, and they think they found the best thing ever. But there's nothing wrong with using Gorilla Tape. It just the issue is the glue of the Gorilla Tape. When you do go to take it off your rim, rim just gets like coated with all that. So I think there's definitely room for somebody to come up with like Gorilla Tape like tape, but just isn't quite as like sticky to the rim.
Mm-hmm. There's a 3M product that I can't remember the name of, some 4-number thing, but it is quite good. It's like a stretchy version of like the Stans or WTB tape, but it's kind of hard to find. So it like there are things out there. I think the muck off tape is uniquely horrible. I think like the Stans plastic tape is pretty shitty. It's like it's pretty disappointing that a lot of rims come with tape that's going to last one tire change.
It's so thin. One tire lever on it, it rips it, and then you go to move it, and it just slides back and forth. Like, how can they not make tape these days? I don't understand either.
Or the tape doesn't stick to the rim.
Yeah, right. you loop it all around once, and then the whole thing just starts sliding. It makes me so mad, and it's expensive too. Like
it is
tape
crazy expensive.
I don't understand. So that's why I think people go to Gorilla Tape because it's cheap. You can buy a 400-foot roll for $10,
and it's readily available. Like you can, I don't know, if you're changing tires at night and you're like, oh shit, I need more rim tape. You can't run to the hardware store and get rim tape, but you can get Gorilla Tape and you can cut it to any size.
Yeah.
There are a couple downsides to it, and I'll go on to these because I've experienced them to all degrees. But the first one being if it's quite warm out, like I would say 30 plus, you're doing this in the sun, the Gorilla Tape can get quite soft. And as the tire tries to beat up, it can actually push the Gorilla Tape towards the outside of the rim, and then that perfect fitment of the tire and the rim on the beadless hook doesn't fit, and you can quite easily blow the tire off the rim as you're trying to inflate it. Or you can do it while you're riding.
That's fun too.
So that's a bad one. The second would be the gunk that you mentioned.
But I think the gunk one, when you work in a bike shop and someone's Gorilla Taped their rim, it's really, really annoying if they want to save the rim for a new wheel build or something like this. Or, or whatever, you want to change spokes, it's a nightmare. But apart from that, because if you break a spoke, you can just cut a hole in that bit of Gorilla Tape and then just patch it with more Gorilla Tape.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it seals itself.
Clever.
So it's like, you can't do that with, that's what frustrates me with rim tape, is that most of my rim tape, if I ever had to work on the rim, is then patched with the Gorilla Tape anyway. Because I'm like, I can't be bothered to do the whole thing.
Yeah.
I will say I've got 3 Roval wheel sets right now that I've had 2 of for a year, and they've seen like countless tire changes, and neither of those I've had to retape, and it's like Roval branded rim tape. I don't know what it is, but that is good.
Roval stuff's good.
But
the
you
race
can't buy it.
Too.
Like you can't buy their race face. Yeah, that bronze stuff they use is also really good, but you can't buy them aftermarket, which is annoying. So
we just need to bring back the UST
Gorilla Tape in a 30 mil.
Oh yeah, that'd be good too.
Made Gorilla Tape in a 30 mil width. It'd be perfect.
But it also the last downside is that I often find that the tire can bond or stick to the rim tape or the Gorilla Tape. Sorry. So then you go to change a tire,
dude.
Yeah,
and then
it pulls the whole
thing. Think about
off.
if you were RockShox. Is this a feature or a benefit? It's ghetto tubeless without it's ghettoizing itself. It's molding. You're getting it's making the tire one big inner tube.
That's Specialized made those little plugs that would just go into each valve hole.
They still sell those.
Nipple hole.
Yeah.
What?
I will say,
like there's like a little plug that's like in each nipple hole. You would just pop into that.
No, this didn't. I'm speaking. Specialized
I only
nipple
use
plugs.
The,
Is that how you call it?
You can find it that way. Let me know what you find out.
I only use Gorilla Tape in like desperation at this point. That's my rule. Like I try to do I do the right thing, and like I haven't really had to retape that many rims recently, but the Gorilla Tape is like emergency use.
It is also quite hilarious that we're putting, $20 tape on our $8,000 plus bikes.
I know.
Do they not have a solution? I mean, Trek has that rim strip.
I hate that.
That's the worst.
I fucking hate those.
That doesn't work good at all.
What was your question, Henry?
Envy have a rim strip, I think.
Envy has one. I have a set of those M9s coming eventually, and I'm curious to see how those compare to the Trek thing, because the Trek one is like, you can't run some tires with it, and that to me is disqualifying. Like,
I think the best solution is the hybrid between, so you basically cut a length of Gorilla Tape and then you secure the rim tape to begin with, and then you can crank it, and then you seal the end with a bit of Gorilla Tape, and it's synergizing.
Synergy, yeah.
Tubeless synergy, yeah.
But then how do you balance your wheel? You know, you got to get like one of those
that is the least
weight magnets.
But also sometimes I used to run a whole like bit of electrical tape in the well, because Stan's tape sticks better to electrical tape than anything else in the world.
Mm-hmm. Oh
yeah, it's like a butterfly paper, but then you're just adding more and more tape.
Yeah,
and then it's a lot of weight. Like that's the other thing with Gorilla Tapes. It's not light. Like it's heavier than light tubeless tape. But
if there's any tape manufacturers out there that have made some magical product,
hit us up. We're not going to our way.
do much with it except use it. But if it's good, we'll let you know. But we're not going to do any tape group test. I'm saying that now.
I would sign up for a tubeless tape group test.
Okay, you can do that, but just send some to us, and then we'll see if it works, because there's room for improvement here.
Yeah.
Nice. Right. Last question. I think. Oh, internet, please.
Hey, Pinkbike.
There we go.
My name is.
I was going to say I literally did Google specialized nipple plugs, and I thought my computer died.
It's Chad, and I live in the Bellingham area. I do most of my riding at Galbraith, and then do some occasional shuttle trips and some bike park trips in the area. Anyway, my question for you guys is actually about getting another bike. Right now, I have a Transition Spire, which is what I primarily ride. But I'm thinking about getting a downhill bike, and I'm also considering a trail bike, but it's one or the other. I have a supportive wife, but I think convincing her to let me get two bikes would be really hard. Anyways, I'm just wondering if you guys have an opinion on if I really need a downhill bike. I think that the idea of having one for Whistler trips and bike park trips and shuttling sounds fantastic, but I know the Spire is also a capable bike from using it. I just don't know if I want to use it for everything that I do. My other part of this is that I'm a big skier and I have way too many pairs of skis, and sometimes it's hard to pick out what pair of skis to take. And I feel like if I have bikes that I'm using for pedaling, whether it's the Spire and a trail bike or a cross-country bike, sometimes I'll have a hard time deciding which one to take. And I think the downhill bike makes it a little simpler from that. Anyways, I was wondering if you guys had advice on that. Appreciate your time. I love listening. Thanks.
Perfectly asked question.
Get an XC bike. He needs an XC bike.
You need an XC bike? Are you mad?
Yeah.
No.
XC.
No.
Like a new XC bike, like an Epic or something, or even like a Spur if he wants to stick with Transition.
I know you have great bridleways in Bellingham, and I'm sure he'd thrash the shit out of them.
That's what I mean.
Whistler within a drive.
Right. So that's what the Spire is
downhill
for.
bike.
Spire.
No.
Yeah, because then he can still go
downhill
pedal on the way up.
I think I'm actually leaning downhill bike for him.
What's wrong with having like fun? It's a downhill bike, Kaz. It's the coolest thing in the world.
Right, but he's riding Galbraith on a Spire. He needs a trail, like an XC bike, his everyday bike.
I don't know what Galbraith is. I think it's a tire.
It is a tire.
It's a track tire.
Yeah.
You can buy the tire.
Okay, hot take. You could sell the Spire, get something in like the 140, 150 range, and a downhill bike. That to me feels like a better
grandmother
combo.
into slavery. You don't sell a Spire. It's there to love and care for.
That's a tricky question. Yeah, it depends what he wants to.
Right, okay, well,
I'd say it depends a lot on how much you're shuttling and how much you're going to Whistler. Like if you're realistically going there every weekend, get a downhill bike. If you're going 2 times a summer and you're shuttling like a couple times a summer, maybe not. But yeah.
So if you can have 2 bikes, what travel, Matt, starting with you?
If you live in Squamish?
If you live in Squamish where you are now, what 2 bikes would you have? What travel categories would you go?
I would have a downhill bike and a 150.
150
trailish bike.
I say, is that 150 mil at the back or 150 at the front?
160 in the front, 150 in the back.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Right, Kaz, what would you go for? 2
2
cross-country bikes?
No, I go for 1 XC bike and 1 enduro bike.
Okay. Would you go for like a epic Evo sort of XC bike?
Yeah, like 120, modern 120, maybe 130, but probably 120. And then the enduro bike would be burler. It'd be like my Raw or something that can handle some bike park smashing.
Nice.
I'd go 130, 170, like a light but capable trail bike and something like overbuilt 170.
Well, you've all given it a good go, but you're all wrong. Matt got the closest. You want to have an enduro bike and you want to have a downhill bike because you always want
just
travel.
Pure maximalism.
You just want travel. Don't get like it's
Dude,
way better.
But wait, like pedaling and sprinting, like little bikes are so fun right now. Like we were riding the other day, and I was with buddies, and we're all like, "Why is anyone buying e-bikes? XC bikes are so good right now. Everyone should have a cross country bike. Like, they're so much fun."
I mean, why is everyone buying e-bikes is a very valid question, and you always got me on board, guys. But honestly, you want as much good things as possible. Travel is good.
Yeah, I'm not saying travel's bad.
But you can
like,
have a long travel.
But when you're pedaling, you want to be riding the trails. You want to be riding the trails that make an enduro bike sing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
no?
But you can get down those in heat on a 130 bike.
It's pretty fun.
Maybe not on an XC bike, but like you can.
Yeah, we're not.
Well, I was gonna say it could also depend on maybe not so much your skill level, but like how much you want to thrash the bike too. Like if you really want to give her the beans on a 130 bike, you can down most of the tracks up here, but you're pushing the limit. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to break stuff. You're going to overheat the brakes. So
not if you put Mavens on your 130 bike, which is literally what I'm vouching for.
I mean, we're already talking about having two bikes. So like, why would you might as well cover the whole broad spectrum of trail style. Like on your XC bike, you're not going to go ride A-line all the time, So that's your like rip around and ride fun techie stuff.
See,
like,
I know what you're saying. It sounds like it makes sense, but there's a warning in my heart. It's not right.
No, it's
like,
you had your tempo, didn't you? Didn't you love that little tempo?
Yeah, dude. I never ride it. You look at it and it starts creaking, which is just so much work. And two, I just said to Matt, I did a big day yesterday, and I did it on the enduro bike and just had a admittedly quite horrible time towards the end. But that's part of the experience.
I don't need to build as much character as you. Like if I'm on an XC ride, I like being on an XC-ish bike. So
no, you're right.
I mean, I went for like a huge ride on my big bike this weekend, and it's like. It's good for that too, but you're not climbing at pace. You're not riding the same kind of trails. Like a short travel bike is fun for like hooning around on flatter tracks and I don't know, carrying speed.
Everybody should ride them. Well, like not all the time, but try them.
Demo them. Take them out.
Get one of those Spectrals. That was a fun bike. That Spectral and a downhill bike is almost as good a choice as having an enduro bike.
That's a good choice. Yeah.
But to answer this guy's question, like living here, Galbraith is really fun on a short travel bike, and there's nothing you can't ride there on a short travel bike.
Yeah, he could go smuggler and downhill bike.
Yeah, I loved that smuggler. I thought that was super fun. That'd be fun. Like smuggler and a downhill bike would be sweet.
That'd be good.
Do you know what would be good? The Druid and a downhill bike.
I still want to ride that bike. Yeah,
it was so good, dude. You know how when like you ride bikes and sometimes they feel like. I don't know. It's not like they don't. The way the suspension just worked, it just always worked. Whatever you did to it, and you didn't have to like choose when it worked or how to work. It just 130 mil, and it would just put most 150 mil bikes to shame. It was just amazing. Well,
hopefully we might have confused him, but hopefully there's some answers in there somewhere.
Do you think that's confused him?
It depends on how much she's going to Whistler. And
exactly. More than 5 times, get a downhill bike. Less than 5 times. Did a shorter travel.
And I would still say if you're getting a downhill bike, maybe down tune your enduro bike to like a shorter travel thing. But
I would look at it the other way, where I think if you get an enduro bike and a downhill bike, and then you just get the same wheel size on both of them, and you just get one type of tire, you have the same brakes, you have the same everything.
What's the fucking difference?
Because you're going to have something that just feels amazing all the time. It's going to descend amazingly.
And climbs like shit. And like
it climbs. You just don't need to finish that sentence. It climbs. Period.
Yeah. I have a bike that climbs right now, and it is. I just don't enjoy it. I'm like I have a bike that just climbs, and it's been a minute since I've had a bike that just climbs, and it is demoralizing. So I don't know if I'm vouching for that. And that's coming from like 42-pound enduro bike.
Yeah, you should clarify. It's not even the frameworks that you're talking about.
No. It's
something else.
It's a production bike with a gearbox that is just like, it makes me sad to pedal it up hills.
The thing to remember is, Dario, that whatever you feel about gearboxes,
I'm wrong.
In your brain, you're wrong.
Yeah.
You're 100%.
Yeah. No, I know.
So
I'm already
just bear that in mind.
for that.
Yeah. It's like, you just. I look forward to seeing that go live.
Yeah.
it's mad. It's like it's so evangelical. Like if you say people, I don't know, it's just amazing that we're in a situation where there's like the audience is so primed to love one thing and they're so chronically underserved by it, and it's like a chicken and the egg. You know what I mean?
So every person that's ever broken a derailleur is like,
yeah.
I want a gearbox.
Done that.
That's
plenty.
the answer.
Yeah.
The first time I rode a gearbox trail bike, this is genuinely true. I hit the rotor so hard it bent and didn't let me. And I was like, what are the chances? I've never completely right angled a rotor before. But the first time I did, I was like, why not the other side? This is bullshit.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Cool. Well, I hope we got some sense out of that. This is my last podcast. This is my last day at Pinkbike, which is strange and crazy. And if I seem a bit edgy today, it's because, quite frankly, I am. To the audience, quite frankly, you've at times been an absolute nightmare, slightly cantankerous, but always loads and loads of fun. And I want to say that genuinely, I know that these podcasts, when we think about media, often gets defined as like a one-way friendship, but I've always worked on the assumption that we would be friends, which is, it's been honestly just the coolest job, massive privilege. It's been fucking sick. I was going to do an article where basically it comes out tomorrow on April Fool's, because it'd be really funny to say I'm leaving and then confuse people forever. But I was writing it and I realized that I haven't written anything good in like a year. I haven't really done any work really in like a year. And I thought to do it where I'm the topic and suddenly kick into action would be self-indulgence too rich even for me. So I would leave it there. But genuinely, thanks for years of interest in the work that we all do. But, people give me feedback and stuff. It always, it basically just helped me as a person, as a profession. And long live Pinkbike. It's been fucking sick. And thanks to you boys as well.
Yeah. It's been like anytime. You can call in, start calling in and leaving us some questions.
I look forward to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might just do that. Oh, that'd be so much fun. I might just call in like retaliatory posts. Just tell people to buy trail bikes. Like, you fucking bastards. But yeah, thank you very, 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 very much. And I will see you out there.
Do you have a final...
Is that what I meant to say? Should I say I should see you outside? Is that hashtag outside? Hashtag outside.
Do you have a final music corner? Like
that's a great question.
Sunset for Henry?
There are two things that I routinely come back to amid periods of change. One is the Douglas Adams quote, I may not have gone where I intended to go, but I think I ended up where I needed to be. And the other is Blood on the Motorway by DJ Shadow. Which, in fact, Darry, I think I texted you about.
Yeah, you
when
did.
I was high off my brains and very sad about leaving. I am so glad you didn't pick up that night.
It was really late. I was actually in the morning, technically.
It was so funny because I don't know how to use an iPhone, and I was like fucking texting, like just absolutely giving her. And it said, Darius indicated silence. Notify anyway. I was like, yeah, fuck him. Just like, notify anyway.
Wake him
I'm
up.
a heavy sleeper. It didn't come through, but I woke up to it. Yeah.
Fuck yeah. Amazing. Thank you very much, guys. And we will see you outside.